Hello, dear viewers. Today, we will tell you about the Trojan War. Enjoy watching. The Trojan War, an epic that has captivated humanity for thousands of years, a tale where truth and legend intertwine. But did this war really happen? Or was it a magnificent tale born from Homer's imagination? Today, I'm taking you on an epic journey through the mists of history. We'll recreate the towering walls of Troy, the bronze-armored warriors, and the famous battle that left such devastation in its wake. But most importantly, we'll trace the archaeological and historical evidence to understand whether this war actually happened. If you're ready, let's begin, because the story of Troy may be much more real than you think. The most important source that has enabled the Trojan War to survive to this day is Homer's Iliad. Homer describes this great conflict between the Greeks and Trojans as a titanic battle in which even the gods intervened. This struggle, which began with Paris's abduction of Helen, Queen of Sparta, is filled with the rage of Achilles, the heroism of Hector, and the battles before the walls of Troy. Of course, Homer's narrative is a literary epic. It contains exaggerations, symbols, and mythological elements. However, the idea that the epic might be based on a real historical event has fascinated scholars for years. At this point, a man who changed the course of history enters the scene, Heinrich Schliemann. In the 19th century, an adventurer named Schliemann set out with only the lines of the Iliad in hand. Most modern archaeologists considered him a crazy man, but he didn't give up. Excavations began on Hisarlik Hill in present-day Çanakkale, and 9 different cities, built on top of each other, were discovered underground. And one of these cities was Troy, the city mentioned in the epics. The walls, gates, ruined rooms, and burned layers that Schliemann discovered were changed day by day. For Troy was no longer a myth, but a real place. But the real question remained unanswered. Was this city truly the scene of a great battle? Archaeologists say that among Troy's 9 layers, 2 stand out in particular, Troy 6 and Troy 7a. Troy 6's strong walls indicate that this city was a very important settlement. However, it must have been destroyed by a major earthquake. Troy 7a, built on top of it, bears entirely different traces: burned houses, urgently constructed grain storage facilities, traces of battle, and damage to the gates. These traces demonstrate the full force of an external attack, and the timing almost coincides with the period described by Homer. Therefore, many scholars seek the true basis of the Trojan War in this period. One of the greatest scenes that comes to mind when the Trojan War is mentioned is undoubtedly the Trojan Horse. According to the epic, a large wooden horse was built, soldiers were hidden inside, and the Trojans brought this structure into the city, thus ensuring their own demise. However, historians believe this may be a symbolic representation. Perhaps the Greeks used a siege engine, or the word horse referred to a military tactic. So, a giant wooden horse may not have actually existed, but the city's collapse is entirely consistent with the immense chaos that followed the war's conclusion. The evidence we have today shows us this: Troy really existed, and this city suffered great destruction. We are talking about a period of great conflict between the Aegean and Anatolian civilizations. Therefore, it is no longer possible to say that the Trojan War was entirely fabricated. Yes, Homer's epic may be exaggerated and mythological, but it is almost certain that the basis of the epic is a real war, a real destruction, and real human stories. That is why the legend of Troy has survived to this day, because the traces of reality still shine amidst the dust of time. And even thousands of years later, we can hear the echoes of that great war.